one team that's worried about their team right now, and hey, I don't think there's much worrying going on in that area, is the Golden State Warriors. Caleb, the Warriors have looked like a different team than we saw from week one. This is one team that I will say, if you saw them week one and or even game one, and you saw them in their most recent game, you would say that's not the same team by any means. And hey, the Warriors do not look like the same team. They went 2-1 this week. Got to win against the Kings. We talked about that on Thursday. Lost to the Warriors at home. Lost to the Clippers at home. Played the Clippers again and beat them at home. So again, beating a team like the Clippers, that's not an understatement. Let's not try to throw that like it's something that happens all the time. I mean, the Clippers are still struggling. We get that, but hey, the Warriors roster is not very good. I had somebody ask me this the other day, like, do you think the Kings roster is better or the Warriors roster is better? And by far, I would say the Kings roster, but the Warriors have been able to do a good job of constructing that small pieces that they have and really using it to the best of their ability. I think Steve Kerr's done a wonderful job at that. And we talked about Steve Kerr. We called him out on this podcast last week. We said we don't think he stepped up to the plate. Now the Warriors look like a lot better of a team. Still super early, but hey, Caleb, they started off what, 1-3? This team is looking like a new team out there. And I'm excited to see what else happens because Steph has looked really, really good.
What I'm excited about is it looks like Andrew Wiggins is starting to figure out a role. His defense on Kawhi the past two games, I think Kawhi made one shot in both games. I think he was like 1 for 6 and 1 for 7 or something whenever Wiggins was guarding him. If Wiggins can figure out a role and figure out what he needs to do to help the Warriors win, which it looks like, and I understand, I don't want to overreact. We overreacted last week with the Warriors. I don't want to overreact this week. But it looks like Wiggins is starting to figure out that role, and that's exciting. I mean, his contract's still bad, but I'm all about players getting paid, so I'm not going to complain about it. He looks like he's starting to figure it out, and that's exciting for him. Kelly Oubre, on the other hand, did you know that the Warriors are 19th in three-point shooting percentage in the league? Did you know if you remove Kelly Oubre's attempts from that, they are 4th in the league? He's dropped them down 15 spots with his poor shooting. Hopefully he can start to pick it up like Wiggins did this past week. I would hope that he does because I don't think he's this bad of a shooter. But at the same time, I don't know. One of those wings had to step up, and it looks like Wiggins did, which is massive.
To be fair, Kelly Oubre has stepped up in his own way. He has stepped up on the defensive end. I've seen him recently get a lot of defensive stops, a lot of key stops, and we talked about it. Where was that Kelly Oubre that would get the stop and do the push-ups or would get the block and he would start flexing or would get a charge and he would point the other way? He's starting to do that now. And those little things, those little energy plays are what separates him from being a good player and a bad player. And I don't want to overstate that because I sent you a tweet earlier today. Somebody on NBA Twitter, again, NBA Twitter, they talked about James Wiseman. And I don't know if Caleb remembers this, but they pretty much said that Wiseman is playing too upset at times. Draymond even mentioned it himself, that Wiseman gets way too much in his head. He gets frustrated way too much, and he needs to learn to just make mistakes and go along with it. Draymond said he had the worst game of his career the other night, and he still ended up making plays in that fourth quarter. So he's saying that Wiseman needs to learn to do the same. Now, that's what's great about Wiseman is he has a mentor like Draymond Green, but I saw a tweet that was like, Wiseman needs to stop getting mad and like pouting. Like even when he dunks, still like he's not happy. He walks down the floor upset. He needs to start like flexing and staring into the crowd and doing this, and then he'll be a lot better of a player.
See, my thing is with that, like that's fine and cool and everything, but if Wiseman is a player that's quiet on the court and you know what I mean, just goes through the motions like a Kawhi. If he's like that type of player where he just doesn't show emotion out there, that's fine. He doesn't need to be that kind of player. If he is that kind of player, cool, he can be that, but that's not him. I'd rather him be true to himself and just go at his own pace. Do what he does best. Don't try to entertain anybody else. Do what you have to do to help the team. I like that Draymond is there to kind of tell him like, hey, keep your head up. If you make a mistake, just look past it. A mistake, it's already happened. You can't go back and change it. I like that for him. I think Wiseman can be really good, but don't try to make him be a showman. You know what I mean? Like, don't try to make him go out there pointing, yelling, cussing like Kevin. Don't make him act like Kevin Garnett out there. If he's not that type of player, he's not the type of player.
Well, and I think that's what people associate with being good sometimes is if a player doesn't show emotion. And this is a lot of times with Willie Cauley-Stein is a lot of people saw Willie's lackadaisical body language, and that showed to people, oh, he doesn't care. Well, I mean, just because you're not Rashawn Holmes and you're not flexing and dunking, and I don't mean Rashawn's mom, please don't get mad at me, please. But just because you're, dunking and you're flexing and you play with a lot of energy doesn't mean that all players are going to be that way. So,
question. We
yes.
both played basketball, right?
Me?
What is more scary to you? A guy who is quiet and just kills you with silence out there, or a guy who's very theatrical and talks shit? What's more scary to you? To me, it's the guy who doesn't say anything. We've seen it before when we played PlayStation. I was going up against Abe and he wasn't saying a word. I was like, why is he not talking? I was horrified. When somebody's silent and just going at you with no emotion whatsoever, it's horrifying. I'm more scared of those kind of players as an opponent than I am than a guy who talks shit, because I know what he's trying to do. He's trying to get in your head. But a guy who's silent, what the hell? Is he not like, what is he doing? Why is he silent?